What's up and welcome back
Just
to the
tell me when we go live,
funny
Tim.
Screencast. I'll tell you exactly when we go live. Exactly when we go live. We're live, Carboni, live on youtube.com/KindaFunny. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic. On a day like this where we get to talk about Star Wars Andor episode 4. I got me, I got you. We have the sad boy, Barrett Courtney.
Ooh.
Hello.
And rounding out the group, we have the one and only Saige Ryan. Saige, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm holding down the Halloween corner as always. Barrett, honestly, I feel like we've kind of got like a cool
Yeah, we got the
between
orange combo
play.
going on over here
The
on
orange
this
and black
side.
thing,
And then we
honestly,
just got
such
these,
a vibe.
Then we got these two jabronis over here. I don't know what they're doing. Just kind
It's all
of
good.
hanging out.
You know what I mean? I'm wearing my Jedi robes today.
I got hit by a
It's
truck.
that beige color.
Yes.
Yeah, I got hit by a truck.
I don't have to wear anything.
Tim, what's your excuse?
It begins.
Yeah, Tim, my best friend got hit by a truck. What's your excuse?
Yeah.
Hey, you know, I know a guy that got hit by a truck. That's what it is. Of course, this is the Kind of Funny Screencast where each and every week we get together these days multiple times a week to talk about the latest in TV, movies, and trailers. Of course, we're reviewing every single episode of Star Wars Andor, She-Hulk, Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon. And every once in a while, out of nowhere, Ryan Reynolds drops a video announcing that fucking Wolverine is in Deadpool 3, and we react to that as well. So you can go check out our reactions on youtube.com/.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to watch that because my brain went spinning out of control with the implications. And I know this isn't the show for it, but there are implications.
There are implications, my friends, and I love every single one of them. Of course, if you want to get the show as a podcast, just search your favorite podcast service for Kind of Funny Screencast, and all of the aforementioned things I was talking about will be there for your listening pleasure. If you wanted to get the show ad-free, though, you got to go to patreon.com/KindaFunny, just like our Patreon producers Fargo, Brady, and Molecule have done. Today, we're brought by NZXT and Uplift, but I'll tell you about that later. I want to get right into it. Saige,
really quick before we get into it, is Tim skipping around and being a weird digital boy for anybody else?
Yes, for me.
A tiny bit.
Well, maybe for the people watching is the question.
Yeah, definitely for the people watching. Yes. So, how's your internet?
Restarting my internet. I'll be right back.
All right.
Be right back.
Saige, how did you feel about this week's episode of Andor?
It was a very interesting episode because it felt a little bit like a different show than the first 3 episodes for me, but not in a bad way. That isn't a criticism of it. I really enjoyed the episode, but it was the first episode of the series, obviously, where we're getting all of like the tie-ins. Like it's starting to happen. And I found myself more this time, like, not being able to look away and be distracted because you missed something, which is very interesting. So I found myself like probably at least 5 times being like, hold on, actually, let me take that back 30 seconds. Okay. And there, yes, understood. Which I think is very good. I think that speaks to it well, but it is an incredibly transitional episode because it's all set up, and they were setting up in a bunch of different places, whereas right now we've really been following primarily this one place. They were just like, okay, here's also everything else. Episode 4.
Yeah, it definitely felt very dense, and definitely felt like the very beginning of the act 2 of the show. Carboni, how did you feel?
I loved it. This is definitely a setup episode, but I love the setup because we're seeing things that I've always wanted to see presented in a way that I've always wanted them presented in live action Star Wars. I love watching like this petty infighting, interdepartmental infighting in the Empire. I love seeing Mon Mothma and Luthen sort of like building the rebellion and seeing how tough that is and how tough it is to actually live under the Empire.
Right.
And we're also getting the promise of this Tony Gilroy, Santa Wallenberg slow burn. The enemy is everywhere. Who's watching who? We're getting that part of it. You know, even in Cassian's story, where it's like, we don't like you. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of suspense, and I really love seeing this much suspense in Star Wars.
100%. Tim, how did you feel about the episode?
Thank you. Without missing a beat. I love how I had to restart my internet, but I turned off my Wi-Fi on my phone and I pulled it up so I got to hear you guys talk about it. You gotta love the internet, how that all works. I didn't miss a thing. Last week I think that I was a little lower on the episodes 1 through 3 than you guys. I liked it, but it wasn't like my favorite thing ever. This episode got me a lot higher on it. I really think that the setup that they're doing here, I'm like, all right, you got my interest now, and you've kind of proven that there is an identity to this show that I am interested in finding out more about. I love the visiting Coruscant, familiar places we know, the amount of just references and like little dialogue bits here and there talking about stuff that I'm sure we're going to get all into.
Yeah.
Of course,
Don't worry. I made
appetite.
a list.
Good. Carboni's got the list, everybody, and I'm so excited about it.
Hell yeah.
Because that stuff's super rad. But on top of that, I just love that this kind of feels like Barrett talked about this last week of how he feels like Rogue One would have been better as a series. And while this isn't exactly that of them getting the plans for the Death Star, I do like that it does feel like it has that same vibe of like we're setting up some heists, maybe multiple heists throughout the season. We get the teams together and and
actually learning about the teams.
Yeah, exactly. And the workplace dynamics between the Empire and like just like kind of all of those together, but then also the rebellion and the idea that the rebellion is not like united yet, right? And there's like a bunch of these different fronts and just the back and forth dialogue. I'm really into this. The whole spy intrigue thing, the multiple levels of even the good guys not knowing who to trust. Like this episode, I think is really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, I agree with all of you as well. Again, my personal favorite highlight was we get the kind of comment from a lot of people who are like, oh man, how many times can we see the beginning of the rebellion? And it's like a lot of times, honestly, and a lot of times it can be interesting because the rebellion is from a bunch of different angles, and it is like these people who started rebelling on their own planets being brought into a bigger organization, and we've seen a lot on that front. We see that in Star Wars Rebels. We see that in some of the books and stuff like that, and I love that we're getting finally the perspective on from Mon Mothma and how that's all going, from like funding things and trying like having the vaguest of ideas of bringing all of these groups together, which we also did kind of get that a little bit in Star Wars Rebels from, you know, a certain character like kind of being the voice going back and forth between all of these different like smaller rebellions and bringing them together. And I love that they're keeping that through line there, but just from a different perspective. Yeah, I was super into this episode. It's very dense. There were a lot of notes to take, and I was hung on every word. Someone in the chat put rightly like a lot of speaking compared to last week's like just last episode's high action, and I like that. I thought we needed a little bit now that Andor is kind of in this whole new world. We got to learn a little bit more about the people and what they're going through, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I love the kind of uses even of just like the different classes. Like we've seen this before in Star Wars a whole bunch of times, especially in the more recent stuff, like even in Last Jedi, kind of dealing with like the casino planet and all that. But Mon Mothma is just such a badass, and her super dope loft, like her outfit's sick.
Her
she
shitty
pulls
husband.
up in this,
God,
this
what?
dope-ass
Oh,
Cadillac.
she has a garbage husband.
She has a Tim, dude. She's got a Tim.
Hey, everyone needs a Tim, and if your Tim is going to be shitty, at least make him look dope as hell in a powder blue Jedi robe, okay? Because that motherfucker was looking sweet.
Flippy hair. His weird little flippy hair. Saige, you're muted, but I know you're talking about the same thing I'm talking about. His weird little flippy hair. He feels like if this was going to be a comedy, he would be played by Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah, this dude was a joke. This dude was an absolute joke. 100%. She showed up, and you understand immediately that the dynamic between the two of them is like this weird parental thing. He spoke to her like he was like arguing with his mom. We never get to have any fun.
I mean, I do love that. Like that scene was like bookended with the shitty cop boy, and like legitimately
Going
having a back and forth, going home to his mom. Like I think that was like really well done.
I like it. It definitely, and we'll get into it, or we can get into it more here, I guess. But I love that it very much bleeds out of like how much Coruscant is just America, and like how you see that on the personal level as well of like these very high class people who get to live in luxury while all these other planets outside of it are just fucking just being destroyed for resources. And it definitely, like, the scene with Mothma and her husband definitely felt like a wife who's like sees her husband slowly turn into a MAGA hat, and it's just like where he's like, yeah, who cares if those people destroyed resources or the products line for these other people on this other planet. They're really fun at parties, okay? Let me have my fun.
Yeah,
it's very hard
Sly
to watch.
Moore and Ars Dangor are really fun at parties.
Really fun guys. The advisors to Palpatine.
Fuck.
Look, here's the thing. It's really hard to watch the men get to be in Star Wars and the women have to be in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
That's rough. That's tough.
Yeah.
I would really like for them to get to be in the same goddamn show.
That is so true. Always.
They're consistently sitting there like, Jesus Christ, you're going to get us all killed. Just please shut up.
Can you imagine
No
how dope
more
it would be,
Tims.
though? No more Tims, dude. I've been saying that literally since day one. But having Genevieve O'Reilly back as Mon Mothma is awesome. Just giving her like the most she's ever had to do in this. I love that we're getting her this early in the series because like I had faith that like she's going to be like a core character of this, and that's awesome because she is just such a badass.
Yeah. We were okay. Well, I don't want to skip ahead, but I had a specific question about somebody that they were potentially talking about. But go on. I don't want to skip ahead.
Oh well, before we get there, we can right when we get back from a word from our sponsors. Shout out to NZXT Canvas gaming monitors. We are huge fans of NZXT here at Kinda Funny. And I got to say, these monitors, they're Andy Cortez approved, Kevin Coelho approved, and Tim Geddes approved because of their sweet 1440p resolution with 165 hertz refresh rate and 1 millisecond response hits. That sweet spot for gamers due to the balance of picture and performance. They're available in 27-inch and 32-inch curved displays, variable refresh rate support for all of the major GPUs. They provide an excellent gaming experience for any game genre. You can get the monitor just alone, you can get it with a stand, or you can get it with some pretty cool mounts. There's built-in software support with NZXT Cam that lets you control all your monitor settings directly on your PC. No need to mess with the clunky hardware menus to lock in your desired settings. They thought of it all. It's sold exclusively on nzxt.com. You can learn more about the NZXT Canvas gaming monitors at nzxt.co/kindafunny. That's nzxt.co/kindafunny.
Shout out to Uplift for sponsoring this episode. I've been using my Uplift desk for well over a year now. I love the thing so much I decided to write a rap song for them. The build quality is real good. It's made of real high quality wood. They didn't ask for it, I just did it anyway. Getting my Uplift desk immediately improved my mood. Whenever I'm on shows, I'm standing up, I'm feeling a lot more energetic. And also I kind of feel like I was just maybe creating some bad habits sitting down at a desk all day. I would move my legs up, I'd sit underneath my legs on my chair, and eventually all that stuff just created really bad back pain for me. Choose from laminate, whiteboard, bamboo, solid wood, butcher block, or even custom solid wood or laminate options. Uplift Desk won New York Times Wirecutter's Best Standing Desk from 2019 to 2022. And while I'm at it, I'm just gonna give them an award as well. Best standing desk that I use in my bedroom from when they sent it to me until now. Uplift Desk have a 15-year warranty. They ship the same day you order with free shipping and free return shipping. So if you've been feeling the effects of sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, maybe you want some more energy in your life, maybe you want to do squats in the middle of a Zoom call or something, uplift your life. Go to kindafunny.com/uplift.
All right, Carboni, you're unleashed. What do you want to talk about?
I mean, we got to start at the beginning, though. Like, I don't want to go too far ahead. We got to start at the beginning.
All right, let's do this.
But we're starting on Luthen's ship, right? And one of the first things that he does after it's like, everybody's got to go through their I didn't agree to help anybody. I agreed to save my own skin. Well, who are you and what are you? Like, fine, I get it.
Yeah,
like,
it has to happen.
You have to go through the solo journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, watching him get into whatever. But he talks about fighting on Mimban, which I love. Mimban, of course, is the mud planet. which is the battle that Solo was in when Han Solo in Solo: A Star Wars Story, when he was his short time in the Imperial Army, he was fighting on Mimban and he fucking hated it, which is really funny because at some point it's entirely possible that Han Solo was up against Cassian Andor in this battle, except that Cassian was a cook that ran away, which I love.
Yeah, it's great.
he was like a scared deserter.
Speaking of cooks, the guy from The Bear.
The guy from The Bear.
Cousin. We got to talk about Cousin when we get to Cousin, bud.
Yeah, Cousin's there. But he does talk about like when he's like, hey, you know, come do this thing. He gives him a Quati signet made of blue kyber. So Quat is a big Imperial shipping. They have like a big Imperial shipping thing there. But also they talk about the Rakatan invaders. The Rakata were in Knights of the Old Republic. They were a force using invasion. They were able to use the force and they invaded the galaxy and they were repelled by the early Jedi. So immediately I was like, how does this dude have this thing from the Old Republic that's worth like this much, that's from like literally an almost forgotten battle?
And it means a lot to him too.
Yeah.
So
but that was such a successful like buy of faith in that moment, not just for Cassian, but also for the audience that has no reason up to this point. Like, we know we're going to trust him because we know how a story is supposed to go and we're sitting home watching it. But that immediate, like, the trust that it built in me and the way that he cares for the future of the rebellion and the way that, like, I understand his position in this now, I think it was a huge step and a very, very well-written one to tie it in.
And his trust in Cassian as well, because he sets him up in, when they're in the ship of, like, this job is going to be 5 days, and then he asks, like, what are we going to do? And he's like, we're going to steal, what is it? The payroll. Yeah, like the quarterly payroll of like an ISB station. And the job that he sent Clem on off of this like backwater planet doesn't seem to be that same job. So I feel like that's also him being like, once you finish this, you're coming back to me, and we're doing something else. This also almost feels, unless I read that wrong, this feels like his kind of final test for Cassian to see how dedicated he is to the cause, which also does seem to be what the rest of that team struggles with, of like, where does his final allegiance lie?
It's interesting because I think they were the same job, but I do think that this is, you're right, this is a test of Cassian, but I want to know why what is Luthen's connection to Cassian? I want to know why Cassian of all people.
Yeah.
And why does he believe so much? And why is he offering Cassian 200,000 credits, which, as we know, in Star Wars money is a lot of freaking money. Like, why are you offering him basically like almost retirement money for this gig? Why did you come to this planet to find him? Why did you give up this Imperial, like the Imperial Wayfinder or whatever? You're giving up a lot of important things for Cassian, who, as we can see right now, as we know him right now, is kind of a deserter and a fuck up.
He hasn't been named to be anything special in any capacity. It's not the Han Solo, I can do anything, I can fly anything kind of guy. Like, they're just like, he's kind of a redundancy. He does a little bit of everything, and we need another guy.
And even if he is that guy,
does not equate to that, so there is something more.
Yeah, and even if he is that guy, you just named Han Solo. We can name Dash Rendar. We can name, like, who's bring him back. We can name a million people who are that guy in Star Wars. Star Wars is full of that guy. So why does Luthen want Cassian so badly? And that's what I'm excited to find out.
Yeah.
Then we got to our new planet here, which I absolutely love, this like mossy, Icelandy sort of flatland planet.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And I there was one shot that I really loved of the TIE fighters kind of like roaring up by them. The sound design was so good, and I love when Star Wars does this, of giving the sense of scale of like the ships versus the people on the ground. And I think that they did such a good job of this beautiful landscape just being ripped apart by these TIE fighters zooming by, and seeing it from their perspective. Like, they're so small. It's like, that is what Star Wars can be. And I thought they did a really good job with it.
Yeah. Agreed.
I love this team that they're putting together to sort of take out this garrison. They find out on the way, it's like, we're not just stealing something. We have to take out an entire garrison. And this leader, Vel, is like, I don't want this guy. And Cassian's like, I don't want to take on a garrison. And everybody from the team is like, we also don't want you here. And so I'm loving this tension that we're building here. This tension that we're building where everybody's like, well, this is very important and we have to do it. But
doesn't she respond to him when he's asking about the job and stealing this payroll? Doesn't she respond of like, I don't even know what you're talking about? Because I thought that's what she was talking about there, or maybe I misheard it. Live chat can let me know, because that was the feeling that I got of like maybe the payroll thing is something else for another time.
No, because they talk about the payroll a couple times.
Okay.
They talk about it when they're around the model and they're planning and everything.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think she was definitely, they were talking about things. What she was talking about is Luthen does, that was their exchange where they were like, Luthen doesn't exist.
Yeah.
You don't know about
Yeah.
Luthen. You don't know about Luthen. You don't mention Luthen, which leads me to believe the team also doesn't know about Luthen, right? Because the moment Cassian shows up, the rest of the team is like, yo, we didn't know about this. And it starts like, they're very unsettled by it. And they're unsettled by it in a way that makes sense, but they're also unsettled by it in a way that's like, they're part of a group that doesn't get to know everything.
Yeah.
And
And Vel Sartha then has to take over and just be like, I trust him, and can't be like, well, technically someone else trusts him. She's just like, it's me. I trust him.
Yeah. So I kind of love that, because we're seeing how Luthen operates and how the rebellion operates right now. And the way it operates is like very need to know.
Yeah.
Like very much like you can't know too much, because if you know too much and they get you, you know what I mean? It was like, poor gullet. You know what I mean? Like we can't let the Empire know too much about what we're doing. And when we after this sort of happens and we go over to basically just another Imperial board meeting. I love this.
Yeah.
We go over to this Imperial board meeting and we see this same thing, you know, when they bring up like, hey, I think there's some strange activity going on.
I see a pattern.
You know, I see a pattern. It's like, yo, you're just seeing things. We don't go on gut here. We're the Empire. We go on information. And that's one thing the Rebellion's so good at doing is compartmentalizing this sort of information, which was fun to see from the Imperial side.
Yeah.
You know
who does trust their instincts and looks for patterns that others don't see? Carboni, Saige, Tim, and someone who appreciates others who kind of see through the bullshit to find patterns that others don't, to kind of like play like 5D chess with their opponents.
Are you going to Thrawn me right now?
Thrawn is going to show up in this show.
Are you going to Thrawn me right now?
Also, think about it, Tim. We got the announcement
I'm
of who
thinking.
is playing Ezra Bridger the day before D23. And so the expectation at D23 is like, they're going to heckin' announce who's playing Thrawn live action, right? No announcement, nothing. But you also know what wasn't announced before Boba Fett? Why am I blanking on his name? My big hat boy who's blue who showed up?
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane, just out of the fucking blue. Their skin
I
is
am
blue.
with you on this.
I mean,
Because it's
eventually,
not only this blonde lady that I don't know her name. I'm terrible with Star Wars names. I'm sorry.
Deirdre. She has a regular name. Yeah.
She's got regular ass name, but also cousin from the bear, real life name, has the most Star Wars name, and I forget what exactly it is. If someone could look that up, it's not just her. It's the cop Shapiro. Who gets fired from his job, completely replaced because ISB is taking over. They're not letting private security or whatever, public security lead this area anymore. ISB's taking over it, and then he goes home to mommy. You know who else? Like, he is also someone who kind of,
You know
like,
who else has a mommy?
Thrawn. But no,
Excellent points all around.
But the other, and this was the thing that I was mentioning last week about Nerd Cop, is that even though he did a major fuck up, he did see through the bullshit that even his superior officer was telling him to just kind of do to like find this investigation, and he did like he did go with his gut and find that stuff out. And there is going to be a point where he is brought into the Empire at some point. And I think it's going to be Thrawn.
But right now,
and I think it might be just
now
Thrawn just kind of like maybe just hinted at, and then we get a tease of him at the end of this series or whatever. But I think it's our blue boy.
We got 12 episodes. I think we could get Thrawn.
Well, look, I think if this era of Star Wars continues in live action long enough, there is no way to do it without bringing in Thrawn. I think that has to be done.
I think he has to be introduced at some point before Ahsoka.
But I think...
we're running out of time for that.
We're running out of time.
Ahsoka's next year, so...
I think Thrawn might be a big... Thrawn could be a big end of season reveal or next season reveal.
Remember this year, 5 ABY or 5 BBY.
Mm-hmm.
The same years that the first season of Star Wars Rebels takes place.
That's true.
And
Thrawn's out there doing stuff.
Who isn't
Thrawn's
in Star
trying to find
Wars
out
Rebels
who
season
stole those
1?
Maelurons.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, he's not in season 1. So he's busy doing other shit.
Yeah.
Like maybe taking care of this Andor situation.
Could be true.
I agree.
True.
I'm feeling it. I feel like Thrawn's coming. And I think he's coming this season, but I don't know for how much. I don't know if we'll get a ton of him this season. I think it's very little. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty small this season, but I think it's happening this season. We're going to see him.
Yeah, these middle managers that we're seeing right now, we haven't met the big bad. We have not.
Exactly. That's the thing, is all of these are little guys, like the smallest of little guys. Usually in a Star Wars series, we get imperial little guys.
Mm-hmm.
These are the little guys under those little guys.
It's just It's Russian nesting Imperials.
Right. It's Russian nesting mall cops.
But I do love this. I do love kind of seeing how everybody is sort of like fighting each other over tiny bits of territory here in this thing and trying to... I get a feeling from Deirdre, even she's giving me the vibe that she's either good Imperial or secret rebel.
I agree.
Interesting.
I think there's something more there, and that they introduced her. Star Wars loves a like an all-male setting with a difficult woman, and I mean this in like the best way. And that is the setup, I think, for something more from Star Wars. From everything we know from Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, if she's not in the rebellion yet, which I think is possible, I think she's on her way.
She could get disillusioned, right? Like this could be one of those things. We still don't know what's happening with sad little mall cop. Like he hates the Empire right now because they took his like corporate cop position away from him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean he won't come back with the Empire or won't try to do something else. He could be part of a different separatist unit that we haven't even seen that is not on the side of the good guys. He could be somebody that's like, you know, a kind of like a vigilante type that's on the side of the Empire. Like we haven't seen, we know that there are groups like that out there as well. Gotcha. I do want to mention just one more thing in this meeting as they're talking is they mention some other stuff that's going on. And they do, of course, mention Scarif. Like they have no idea what's going on right now. They can't get in touch with Scarif because there's some stuff going on.
Construction going on. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah. And we know that Scarif was like secret projects, which is fun. But I do just want to say the guy who talks about the increase in construction on Scarif is just the perfect original trilogy 70s Imperial British guy with his 100%, mustache and his weird part and his like his tiny neck. Like he's got a real thin neck. He just looks like a 70s Imperial, and I just appreciate his casting so much.
Also with this scene, you know, we follow the kind of old dude who's talking about like, what are we? You know, we're not security, we're healthcare. You know, and he's talking about we fight.
Security is an illusion.
Yeah, we fight. We find and treat diseases from within and from the outside, and you can take that two different ways. Within the kind of inner workings of the Empire. Of course, spies, stuff like that, people who are disillusioned. And then, you know, people on the outside, obviously rebels and stuff like that. But you could also take that, Tim, Saige, Carboni, in another way. Within the galaxy and outside in wild space, Who's from Wild Space? Thrawn, baby.
All signs pointing blue, baby.
I was gonna say Jackson. Jackson the Space Rabbits from Wild Space. Is that who you're
What we
talking
know
about?
Yes.
about Thrawn
Yes.
doesn't like things, has a mom from Wild Space.
It's all added up. It's all added up.
Partagaz is great. I do like his thing about being healthcare, and I like his ineffective Tarkin energy, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
He's an ineffective Tarkin, like right down to the fact that when you look at his ranking,
It's
he's
all
just
the little,
middle.
the light blue ones.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
middle management, and he has like a lot of like important things to say, but all he cares about is who gets their reports in on time and what the memos look like, and like,
And he
you're
doesn't
behind.
really. He tries to rule with that iron fist, and he doesn't really. Like even when he's chewing out a little bit, Deirdre near the end of the episode, he even ends with a compliment about her,
Yeah,
where he's like,
"You
"You
did do a
did
good
this
job."
one thing cool. That was dope," and then walks away, and it's like. Man,
I'll
if
give
that
you
was
more of that.
Tarkin, he would not even give her
No.
any air to breathe with, you know?
Tarkin does not compliment Sandwich. Tarkin is not. He doesn't do management retreats. Like Tarkin doesn't do that stuff.
Mm-mm.
We're seeing some real middle managers here. But after we see this, we go to my favorite bit in this whole episode, which is Mon Mothma walking into Luthen's shop. Now, Luthen, we see after Andor takes off, we see him. Now, I would say that if I was a deep cover operative, I would put on the wig for when I'm in deep cover, and for my
I was
day-to-day
thinking
life.
the same thing.
Yeah, for most of my life, when most people have to see me, I would do no wig.
Yeah, that's
You
usually how
know?
people do it.
That's what I would do.
Is
But
it a
I'm not
wig? I don't know. Wigging out
What do you
without
mean you don't
Scarpino. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Wigging Out Without Scarpino. Everybody, my name is Barrett Courtney. I'm your host without Scarpino. Joined with me is Carboni, Saige Ryan, and Tim Geddes. How impressive was it when he put on the wig and then you get the front shot? It didn't look like a wig.
It looked great.
It looked perfect.
This
So
is the
now
best
I'm
wig I've
questioning-
ever seen.
Now I'm questioning if those
For
were
a
two
pull-on?
different shots.
I'm wigging out.
Where he might have done the actual wig shots, like in the store, and when he's looking at himself in the mirror in the front shot, maybe that was long hair, and then they did later shots where he is doing the short hair stuff. I don't know.
Sage,
It's wild.
your wig expertise, please. Do you believe that they shot Skarsgård with long hair and then cut his hair, or do you think that Skarsgård has a long wig?
I'm pulling this back up.
Mm-hmm.
This is important.
We need to go to the file.
That
Yeah,
first
yeah, I'm
shot,
getting to the files. I'm
first
getting that
shot of
close-up
him
on it.
in the front was like, that looks.
It wowed me. Barrett.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
here's
right
the
there
thing,
with
insane.
you. I was impressed.
Because here's something that we can say about Disney Plus series across the boards. We have not been impressed with their wigs.
No.
Oh, even
we
Marvel
haven't.
No.
movies, man.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah,
Rogue
Marvel's
One.
had a lot
The
of
mom
trouble
from
with
Rogue
wigs.
One in that first scene, that's a terrible wig. Terrible wig.
Skarsgård's looking good with that long hair, but I
It
think
looks really good. Now,
It looks
it's
really
entirely possible. Essentially, the thing that you would have to do with this is it would be more like a toupee in the way that it pastes on, because that is his hairline. There are
Mhm.
these little straggly old guy hairs in the front that have to be real.
Okay.
So it could be set back on his hairline for length, and then it's essentially, it would look real because this portion of your hair is real. And that's like the
Mhm.
best way to hide a wig, is having a little bit of your own hair that can show.
Listen, shout out to ILM, shout out to shooting things on the volume, shout out to digital effects, shout out to Pixar's Render Man, shout out to all of these things. Shout out to the Kerner optical multiplane camera. All of these things are working to make Skarsgård's hair look good. But what's
Doing God's
important?
work.
What's important
wig.
though?
It's
It's
a wig.
Okay,
I'm,
it's a wig.
I'm going to call it, it's a wig.
Okay.
Wow.
I think you're right. I think it's a good wig, and we're not
They
used to
finally
Disney.
figured out the science for
The
it.
wig technology,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
They can make a convincing alien.
Yeah.
And sometimes they put a wig on somebody. I'm like, that's not their real hair. I believe the Ewok is real.
Mhm.
Yes.
But
The
that hair
Gungan,
ain't.
that's real. Cad Bane exists. That
Yeah.
wig?
And it's
No.
now.
I love the moment really quick before we get into the sort of last thing. I love him trying to get into like getting into character.
Yes.
You know,
So
it
good.
reminds me of like backstage when I was a theater kid, you know, you're getting into the character and stuff like that. And it made me sad a little bit, you know, like I can only imagine like the you know, the duality of the roles that he's playing and probably the frustration that leads into having to pretend to still wanting to be a part of this luxurious life that he lives.
It's your millionaire playboy Bruce Wayne. It's your
100%.
Zorro. It's your Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah.
If you're Daffy Duck, it's the Scarlet Pumpernickel. Look, he's pretending, he's doing the thing where he pretends to be like a lollygagging rich guy, and he's really one of the people. I love the interactions between him and his assistant. I love that she is his confidant. She immediately goes,
I got this.
And she's good.
new driver, probably
love her.
Chandlerlon. Yeah, she's amazing.
That was a cool scene, and I just think it was really well done.
Yeah.
That is my favorite scene in the show so far, and it might be one of my favorite Star Wars scenes because I've been waiting for this intrigue. I've been waiting for this suspense. And also there's something about this scene, you know, we make fun of like the Glup Shido thing, right? Like I can't wait for them to introduce like that's Glup Shido. He's in the background and I knew he was going to be there. This uses Star Wars lore, if you know it, and Star Wars artifacts to show you Luthen's interests, his research, his place in society, and where we're going in this series. Because number one, the Empire, we know, destroys artifacts, history, knowledge. Everybody's always like, how come 30 years later people don't remember this or that or the other? And it's because the Empire crushes out. We're talking about a galaxy that doesn't use screens and for the most part doesn't record things. So when you destroy artifacts, you destroy history and and that's why the powerful and the rich in Star Wars, particularly villains, particularly your boy Thrawn, Barrett, collects art. He collects history. Because the knowledge of what happened in the galaxy is a guarded thing. And Luthen, as somebody who is wealthy and part of Coruscant society, is allowed to still run this business because he's selling to other richies. This is like the 1% in the Empire, right? So he's allowed to keep this shit. But the shit that he has is like insane.
Yeah.
I have a list of some of his stuff.
I love you so much, Carboni. Like the thing is, like Saige, I know you'd get this as well. We're all really into this stuff. I would say that I am really into this shit. How the fuck is Carboni so many layers deeper than I could ever be? I love it so much.
Because he gets paid better to do it than the rest of us.
Okay, that is fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
So first of all, I want to talk about the fact that he's literally got Sith Stalker armor. In the background of his Sith Stalker armor is the armor that Galen Merrick, the Star Killer, wore in The Force Awakens.
Looked familiar. God damn it!
Yeah.
I was like, the helmet kind of looks like the one Leia wore in Jedi, but like I couldn't place it. I knew it was from something, and I couldn't quite place it. Thank you.
That Star Killer armor, it has to be bonded to your body. It's grafted onto your flesh and bone. We do not know that this is Star Killer's armor because Star Killer is not canon right now, but we do know that that is Sith Stalker armor.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's also got an Utapau monk cudgel. There are 3 races that live on Utapau. One of them is the Pau'an, which is the Grand Inquisitor is a Pau'an.
Right.
So by Luthen showing that he has this, he is showing that he is researching the enemy right now, right? It's very interesting that he has this stuff. He's got Plo Koon's breathing mask. Or at least somebody's breathing mask, right? He's a Keldor, so they all have to wear those, but it could be Plo Koon's. It might as well be because our dude's got 2 holocrons, Sith and Jedi. He's got 2 holocrons in his store. You just walk in, and the entire bank of knowledge of all the Jedi and all the Sith is sitting on his goddamn shelf.
Yeah.
You could buy it
Badass.
from him.
I'm surprised that he's allowed to have that so publicly right there. I'm just saying.
I agree.
Like,
I also
he's
feel like that's
literally
a
on
bold
the same
front.
planet as the Sith Lord. Like, you don't think he's like, I don't know. I thought that you don't think someone's reporting to him of like,
So he has this thing you might want.
Like, it's wild. So, but that's the thing is like, to the average person, it means nothing, right? And even to art collectors, it may mean something, but it may not. But they don't necessarily know, because he also has murals that depict the world between worlds.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Holy shit!
I didn't notice either.
As the assistant is walking the driver over to see these coins, they have like they have like stones that show the world between worlds.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ!
Which is freaking wild. So Lothal is not destroyed yet, the temple. So this is from some other temple that we don't know about, showing the world between worlds. That's freaking wild to me.
Andor's like, you know what? There's not going to be lore. Gotcha, motherfuckers. There's lore for days, everybody.
But it's like good lore that you can ignore if you're not there for it.
Right.
Like lore.
I didn't mean for that to be so like Dr. Seussy in the way that I said it, but here we are. You know what I mean? Like, it being in the background there is such a fun way to navigate how much Star Wars that there can be when they are still trying to make a show that's supposed to be a little more accessible for new Star Wars fans. I still don't know that they've done that necessarily, but in stuff like this, you do not have to know how important that is, but damn, it's cool if you do.
Yeah.
And the scene works so well, whether or not you know, because like the change in tone when they get in the back and like immediately both of them just start being real, and then when they start walking out and they get back into character, it's like, damn, this is good shit.
Yeah.
And Mon Mothma,
Andor said acting.
yeah.
Yes.
Mon Mothma just being like, hey, I don't know how, like, you think you're telling me how unsafe this is. I'm the face.
Right.
I go to she that line that she says where it's like, I go to the bank every day.
And they've changed all the people. I don't know
Everyone's
anybody.
new.
Yeah.
And he goes, I notice you have a new driver. And she just has this look on her face that's just like, I did not hire this driver.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
like,
then when they go back out and they start acting again, and I love when, you know, you're acting, you're saying a line with a little bit of a double meaning here, where he says it's a daring choice, but I can trust you can turn back if it's too much. And I love that, man. It was so good. Skarsgård delivered it perfectly. Yeah, this entire sequence was incredible.
it was perfect. And then her look, just the camera, when they hold the camera on her as she's flying away, and you're just watching like the stress, and she kind of even looks a little bit
Right.
towards her driver, and it's just like, fuck, I don't like, she's surrounded. And then it's double heartbreaking when we see her go home and we realize like
She
her
has to keep-
home is also not safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nowhere is for her, yeah. God, and that scene, okay. First of all, quick shout out to that outfit that Mon Mothma is wearing, because
Killer.
Jesus, oh my God, the sleeves.
Mm.
Genuinely a dream. But the scene that follows with this man, and I know we talked about how much we hate him in the beginning, but also like, they drop a couple of important pieces of information because we get context from Mon Mothma, we have future context from Mon Mothma, we have this like, oh shit, you're literally surrounded. This thing that immediately backs up exactly what she was trying to tell him.
Yes.
Immediately she's there and she's like, I'm the face, this is what's happening to me. And then she walks into her own home. And that's the scene that proceeds. Is there's tables and chairs set up for these horrible advisors of Palpatine.
Perrin. Ooh, Perrin. Fuck
Ugh,
Perrin. Perrin
that scene
sucks.
is so wonderful, and it's so interesting to see someone who should have so much power. Like, she's a senator, she's all of these important things, to be so powerless continually.
Yeah. Oh, and his whole thing where it's like, oh, but they're fun. They're fun people to
What
hang
a
out with.
weird take. I want more. I don't want more of that, because I want to punch that man square in the nose and then rip his little pigtail out.
Yeah.
But then But then I do want to understand what it is about, like, it's not fun. And I know that also there's like a level of like, hey, this is the burden of information and empathy. And I think that there's a huge storyline there of the burden of empathy is having to care that these people are ruining the entire galaxy. They're killing people, they're committing genocides and all of these things.
And your husband is just a wealthy guy who is unbothered because it doesn't touch him and they're his friends and you run in the same circles.
It's almost like a commentary on how unfazed people are when, like we have like war criminals on, like Fox and stuff like that from the day to day. And we just kind of normalize that in our society. It's very interesting. It's almost like a parallel in a way.
It's almost like there's some weird stuff happening.
It's almost
in real
like
life.
Star Wars was always kind of.
It rhymes, guys. It rhymes. My favorite line of this entire go for it, Saige.
Oh, I was just going to say at the end of that, they've showed us multiple examples now throughout the Disney Plus series of what it looks like when you are not the big bad and you are not the hero, and what all of these people that turned their eyes away from people that were suffering and in danger while this happened. So we saw in Obi-Wan, we saw the guy who was just like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm vaguely pro-Empire, like I'm kind of chill about it, but like
I'll give you a ride.
I have my little Empire bumper sticker, but I'm not out, rioting or charging the Capitol. But and there's all of these people in between we're meeting. So please, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say my favorite line of this entire episode was with the Imperial guy talking to the space cop when he says, "It took the combined ingredients of idiocy, ineptitude, and total disengagement for this farce to reach the full apex of incredulous disaster."
Yes, that's good.
Go.
So good. It's the military coming in to tell the local police, y'all are fucking dumb.
This is some straight up Super Troopers shit. I loved it.
I love the raising of the hand, and he's like, seriously, dude?
What are you doing, dude? He's like, proud are we? So good.
Question? No. I wasn't even there. Yeah, exactly. Where were you?
Man.
God, I love it. One thing that I do want to mention here about dinner is when he talks about Ars Dangor and Sly Moore coming to dinner. She talks about Gorman, the planet Gorman, and how like, oh, maybe you can talk about how like nobody's been able to get like food there because the supply lines have been. That was mentioned in Rebels, but we still don't know what went down there entirely, but we do know that was like a central thing that was going on in Rebels at the same time. So I do listen, Rebels is good. You could watch Rebels. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe I started a rewatch the other day. Who knows?
I don't know.
Tim,
You need to be stopped.
Tim, I'm just saying, maybe, catch up on Rebels. I'm just saying.
Working on it.
I know you're working on it. Really quick, to go back to Nerd Cop when he goes back home. Quick, do we know if that was Coruscant? Was that a different planet he was on that was just very city-like?
I thought it was, because I thought the way that they were cutting, especially with the elevator and all that, like I think it was supposed to be, but I left with the same thought of like, I'm not sure that it is.
I don't think it was the same kind of sector of the galaxy that he was originally in, because they made a point of like, he does not even have like an accent even close to anybody else who's local there. So
and they showed that elevator that he was in and the size of that building. I think we could assume that it's
at least inner rim, like
he's in a different area for sure.
It felt mad serial killer vibes. I'm gonna be honest, when he was walking home with his his suitcases and that like creepy music behind him, and I was like, what is happening here? And I love that his mom just kind of lives in like an old person Italian neighborhood, or that's just like the vibes his mom gave off, slapping him. That was great. And then when she's looking at the other old lady, she's like, what are you looking at? And then like brings him back inside. That was all very great, just to kind of understand of like this weird little weirdo who spends too much time on the internet.
Yeah, he's a little weirdo that's about to be on the alt-right pipeline from his mom's
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah, straight
And
up.
that's
Really is.
weird.
I was getting a lot of Judge Dredd vibes too from this, of just kind of like the different, the higher lower class stuff. Very on the nose,
Yeah.
but like I liked that they're kind of setting that up, especially with it being the Imperial side of things, and like he's not quite Imperial yet, but I like how they're building this up of like having the good guys, bad guys, but then also kind of like having the power dynamic off a little bit.
Well, we do know that there are mega cities. Like you think about like the pour one out for Star Wars 1313, which was supposed to be set, you know, on the lower levels of a mega city where like the scum and villainy happens. But I do love the idea. Like one thing that we see from this guy talking about what you were saying, Saige, where it's like this guy's on the alt-right pipeline, where you can tell that he comes from, you know, it's not a nice family. It's not a poor family. You know, I feel, but he was definitely trying to get above his station in life. And you can see that. And you can tell from the building, like his mother is pretty well dressed, but she's not like as well behaved as like the people we see on Coruscant, like not as cultured. And then like,
she's
the
also
building
not
is-
like in the top of like the buildings and stuff, like
Yeah.
on the city skyline and stuff.
and the building is clean, but like everything is small, right? Like you can tell that everything is like, and so it has this very like big apartment building vibe.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea that he was like trying to get above his station, you know, and it didn't work out for him. And now it's going to like, now he's going to be even more, he's going to have that chip on his shoulder and be even more like in a retaliatory mood towards who knows who. I'm very interested in seeing what happens with Karn.
Absolutely.
We
There you go.
haven't-
Any
well,
final thoughts on
we haven't
this
really
episode?
talked about Andor a lot in the second half of like what he was up to, of just
Yeah,
like
it was not the focus of this episode or our review.
just like shouting out to like them putting the plan together. I liked the dynamic of the reason why, just like thinking about it a little more out of context, the reason why they're so distrustful of him. Obviously they're having a trouble being a team as it is without like a new thing coming in, but I think a lot of people probably understand that when you fight against the Empire at this stage in it, you don't walk away from it. So they're probably just really tense about like who they let in just in that context, which I really like. I like that they've got someone on the inside who is also kind of disillusioned by what the Empire is doing, kind of like what we saw a little bit in Obi-Wan as well, and in other stuff. But I like that they're kind of keeping that as a thread, because you know there are people like that definitely out there who kind of, even though they're serving the system, they understand of like, nah, this needs to change. And I really like
or
that.
even if he's just out for himself, like we don't know where his sympathies align. He may just be like they're in to like steal this money, and that's fine for them too. I love the description of the Aldani eye, this thing that we're going to see during this heist.
So
like,
cool.
Like tiny micro particles that explode in the sky, and they only have like a certain amount of time to get out. Like, even though this was a talky episode, like that's more of that like suspense where I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to see this thing.
Oh, totally. I mean, I love it because two things. First off, I love that they have a dedicated guy that's just like going to make sweet little models and miniatures and dioramas to show people. So shout out to that. But to your point,
hey, Nemec,
Carboni,
I hope you don't die.
I love that they set up. Oh, that guy is dead. That guy is so fucking dead. But I love that they set up what the heist is going to be and kind of like teased us with like the action set piece. And it's like, this gave me such Top Gun Maverick vibes of like, okay, you're telling us exactly what they got to do, and it's going to be fucking rad when they do it. So I can't wait. I don't think we're going to get it.
I took it more as like, this is exactly the plan. Where is it going wrong? You know, like where do they need to like kind of readjust in the middle of the plan? My last thing I want to just shout out, Cassian responds at one point when he kind of learns the plan here. He says it's a suicide run, and I like this moment where Cassian's finally taking in, he's meeting people who are willing to risk it all at the expense of themselves and stuff like that. And that's kind of his Jyn Erso moment, but I think maybe, you know, not quite as rushed, and it's not immediately like he's on board with them, but he's slowly starting to understand it, and I really enjoyed that.
He's a rebel. That's what he does. Let us know in the comments below if you think Thrawn's showing up and what you thought of this episode overall, and How many Tims is too many Tims? Let us know. We'll be back next week to talk about Andor episode 5. But until then, Saige, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Not Sage. I stream on my channel as well as twitch.tv/Pixel Circus, where Anthony and I host a show together called It's Too Early, where we do morning gaming and pop culture news, and usually just yell about the things we found annoying on the internet.
Yep.
And that's been Wednesdays and Fridays.
Anthony, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at Carboni, except for on Twitch, where I'm at Anthony Carboni. Twitch, you cowards, it's mine. Give it back to me. And of course, my science comedy podcast with Jeff Canada, We Have Concerns. You can listen to that at wehaveconcerns.com.
And you can see Anthony and Saige live in person with us at the KindaFunny studio launch party.
This is the first time it's going to be the Star Wars
It's gonna be
together.
It's gonna be great. I can't wait.
Awesome.
I don't even know these people in person.
It's gonna be so cool. But anyways, I love you all. Goodbye.